Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for all the enthusiasm and energy despite it being a post-lunch session. And with all the collective wisdom and experience that I have here, I'm sure it's going to be an interesting one and one that will keep you on your chairs and all ears. So with that, I'll quickly launch into the topic of discussion. Here we're talking about driving data democratization within the enterprise. Now, while there's a lot of talk around using data, tapping into its benefits, data is abundantly available like water everywhere, but not all of it is fit for consumption. And Forrester states that almost 73% of business data goes unused for want of better analytics and decision making. Now, this happens in a lot of organizations because of the inefficient organizational processes and the architectural decisions that have been made that create a gap between the potential and power of data and the ways in which it is being leveraged within organization in terms of the aggregation of data and making it work for organizations. Now, one way organizations can solve for this challenge is through data democratization. But this is a very lofty business goal. It requires a lot of tweaking within the organization. A lot of processes need to be overhauled. An entire culture needs to be built up. And that's what will help us maximize the value of data that we have within organizations. And with these gentlemen present here, they're representing different industries. We'll try and understand what they are doing within their companies and what are some of the barriers that need to be removed for organizations to be able to reap the benefits of data democratization. So I'll start off with you, Saswata. When we talk about data democratization and sharing data enterprise-wide, there is a need for a data normalization. And until the time data normalization is done correctly, organizations will not be able to deal with the data quality issues and they'll not be able to get the intended benefits out of the data. So when we talk about data normalization, it becomes even more challenging because organizations today are also leveraging cloud and cloud-native environments. So how can organizations deal with this challenge? And as a healthcare tech company, how are you trying to deal with this challenge within your company?
Thanks for the question. That's a deep question after lunch, but we'll try to answer. I think in today's world, I only registered the words that are important, which is data normalization, data quality. Those are the two words that I heard. So essentially, when we talk about data normalization, it's a byproduct of any data strategy, right? Any company, it's about data strategy. And data strategy is influenced by business strategy, whatever your business strategy is. I come from a health technology company. Any health technology company works on a particular business strategy. It's a care continuum, that's what at least we call. And care continuum will mean, say, first is prevention, second is diagnosis, third is treatment, and fourth is cure. So those are 4 business outcomes or desirable business outcomes via technology. That's what we try to solve. Now, taking one specific example, let's say diagnosis. So in case of diagnosis, if that is my objective or an outcome for a particular technology, let's say digital X-ray, then when we create any data sets, first question is, it is of course everything in cloud, which means data is plenty. But whenever you are trying to get data sets or getting certain data sets or databases, the way it should be done is keeping a business outcome in mind. And that can be diagnosis, continuing my example, narrow example. In diagnosis, let's say there can be 2 outcomes. For example, I want to improve image processing, or I want to have better voice modulation or voice suppression. How can I do that with respect to our processes? So what will happen is the data set or the database that you are fetching, you need to keep that in mind so that you are studying that particular aspect. And now extrapolating that, data normalization you should do keeping in mind certain business outcome. That is when you get all the stakeholders together with you so that you can work towards it. That is how at least most of the companies should do and are doing at this point in time.
Right, absolutely. Now, I'd like to take that thread from Saswata's response to you, Shivaji. Shivaji, when we talk about data democratization, one of the focal challenges facing organizations is the information silos and in the unintegrated data. And to deal with it, organizations need to be able to manage and define their data supply chain. They need to build a data science bridge, and they need to create a shared data dexterity model between different departments. At DLF Malls, you have pioneered the retail revolution in Delhi NCR area. How are you trying to deal with this? How are you trying to work above, around, and through the silos? And how are you trying to build that culture within your organization?
Firstly, I would say that question kind of tells a lot about what I do at my job. It's about a centralized and decentralized system coming together. It's a mixture of both processes which we would like to implement. Because I clearly know, I mean, as much as it's Delhi NCR, from sitting in Bangalore, it just sounds North India. But in itself, if I'm dealing with 5, 6 of these malls, they are very heavily dependent on what kind of location it is, right? So as much as I'm trying to do unified campaigns or unified goals which I'm trying to achieve, which is getting customer data, the strategies are very different from one mall to another, because Noida to me is very different from Gurgaon per se. At the same time, the gentry is very different. Like Gurgaon is more corporate, Noida would be more household. South Delhi, where we are, we have 2 malls, has a very young crowd, I would say, college crowd. So
Demographic difference.
very, very different. But at the same time, the goal is common. With that being said, in the phase of digital transformation, we believe that we should have proof of concepts so that we can break the silos if required, in a way that there's a green light by all departments, right? So because I work with marketing, for me, my goal is to probably implement a strategy in one mall and maybe replicate, if not completely, but mask it in some or the other way, which can work in different phases, I would say. So if you have a good proof of concept of what you're really trying to achieve out of your goals, and you sit with the different departments, it can clearly work. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's about driving that culture. True. Now, Koushik, you are at PayU, you are a leading payment solutions provider to almost 5 lakh plus businesses in India, and you have data both on the lending and spending side. So how are you working around silos? How are you trying to break silos, on all three fronts: data silos, people silos, and information silos?
Yeah, sure. So I think, like you said, PayU is in a unique position because we are both on the lending side and on the payment gateway side. And that, I would say, is the core strategic advantage that PayU has, right? It's beyond just being able to break the silos. Breaking this silo is the business. So just to sort of give you a sense for the magnitude of data we have, pretty much anybody that is part of Digital India is part of the PayU customer base, right? We have almost 500 million customers on the payment gateway side. So what we've done is we've been able to take that and use that for the lending business. So in 2018, we launched a product called LazyPay, which was the first BNPL product in India, where looking at the payment behavior of customers, we were able to take risk on underwriting small loans on, let's say somebody's like checking out on Swiggy. We were able to give them a 500 rupee or 1,000 rupee loan without any bureau, without any KYC, without any of that, just based on the payments data, right? So I think that's really the journey that PayU has gone through. What we've done now is taking it one step further to actually externalize the insights that we get out of the wealth of data that we have. So we have clients that we serve insights to using the transaction behavior of customers, right? So yeah, we've definitely broken the silo, and even organizationally, like I sit as a horizontal data organization. That is the way we went about breaking the organizational silo. So I think we've been able to achieve quite a bit of success using data by breaking those silos.
Absolutely. Now, Ravindra, when we talk about real-time data is the lifeblood of many organizations today. But it's very difficult to manage, the supply of real-time data, and supply of data in real time, and to ensure that it is trustworthy data, right? At Meesho, you are an online marketplace that facilitates trade between the customers, suppliers, and resellers. And there's a heavy reliance on third-party social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. So how are you trying to solve for this challenge? How are you ensuring that trusted data reaches the people in the right format, and it reaches the right people?
Got it. So I'll try to probably give a standard answer and and how Meesho is able to emulate that standard practice, right? So data in general comes in different forms and shape, right? You would have multiple modalities. You would have images, text. You would have transactional data, and these data points, they come at different frequencies as well, right? From different sources. So the standard practice is to basically, there are, I think, threefold. First is building a unified data platform, right, which is able to like take in data, ingest data from different sources, and it could be at different frequencies. Like it could be very real time, like sub-second versus 1 minute versus 1 hour versus 1 day versus a week, right? So that's one where the system should be able to bring together all all data sources, data together, massage it and transform it and make it available in a common strategy to all the stakeholders, right? The second part is basically building the right data governance, right? Where you would make sure that the data that comes into your system.
Some water?
That's okay. That's fine. That's fine. No, it's fine. So you need to validate the data, massage it, and make sure that it's available in the right way. The data does not get corrupt, right? So that's another. Plus, you would also want to have role-based access. So who is reading or writing the data into the data store? You need to make sure that the right audit logs are there. The third and final one is basically making sure that there is right sort of monitoring and alerting via which you are able to capture if there is any noise coming in, any data is drifting, right? So you would want to monitor that at a real-time basis and alert the right stakeholders. So if you follow these 3 steps, I think largely you would be fine.
Right. Now, I'd like to take this thread to Aditya. Aditya, when we talk about data democratization, all of a sudden we are giving data in the hands of people who are not really equipped to handle all the data. So when we are democratizing data, we end up giving it to different personas, right? Now, when we attempt this in a very intentional fashion within the enterprise, how should organizations go about enabling and empowering their people so that they feel comfortable in dealing with data, they are able to access data well, and they are able to set and once they have some progress with that, then they are able to set achievable, measurable, and attainable targets with data. So how do you choose the right tools to enable and empower people? And as a digital lending platform for MSMEs, how are you trying to simplify data engineering with people?
So I think both the questions are interlinked, and coming from a digital MSME, data democratization is a very sensitive topic for us. And in MSME, coming from a company where more than 90% of the folks are non-data folks, democratization is a bigger challenge for us. Right now, with democratization comes other challenges like there are role-based challenges that are there. Data is coming from various sources. There can be tabular data, non-tabular data. All of that is coming from various teams: operations, sales, product, tech. So we need to handle that. There are role-based challenges, and then there are challenges regarding the metadata of the data. So now with these challenges, I think the way we are solving, and I'll answer the democratization part later, the way we are solving all these challenges is that we are kind of building a in-house data lake platform, that will inherently solve all these challenges together and provide us a way to democratize the data for the non-data folks. There are a lot of solutions that are available outside commercially for us that we can use. But I think in MSME and digital lending, since RBI has very strict regulations, we decided that we'll go ahead and build all of this in-house. And there are very structured steps to build a data lake in-house which can help you manage your data effectively. You have format standardization across all sources. Then you apply all those guardrails around who needs to access what kind of data. You need to establish some of the data ownership modules, like who will own this particular type of data, the data quality, the data sanctity of all these modules, right? You need to have a very effective metadata around all of the data that you are gathering, right? Because that only makes it very effective. Once you have set up a very robust data lake platform, then you start democratizing the data. And the steps to democratize are very simple. Adoption for non-data folks come through education. So you start educating them again and again. And once you start educating, you need to provide a platform for them to give you a lot of feedback. They will write random queries. They will explore the data. They will probably create more data sources out of their own experiences. Right? So you need to have a very robust loop around this where you educate and get that feedback from them. Right? So a very robust data lake has actually helped us, cater all these challenges of democratization. And the second question which says that, how do you simplify the complexities? This is how you go there. Right? And one of the major complexities, I think, which does not touch any other business as much it does touch MSMEs is, again, I'll repeat that it is around the security. Right? So you need to have very strong role-based access policies that customer data, Aadhaar, PAN is not getting into the hands of people who are not entitled to use it, right? So, and I heard one of the words somewhere embedded in that question was the goals around it, right? So security is our goal. We don't want data leakage, right? So we can probably measure that how many data leakages are happening, how many frauds are happening because of data leakages. But the other major portion of the goals is that once you are democratizing the data, the volume of the data will increase a lot. It will increase exponentially. And if your architecture is simplified and robust, then the cost should not increase as much. Right? So in our organization, we saw that with our data lake architecture, we were able to increase the volume to up till 40 times, but the cost increased only about 2.5 times. Right? So these are some of the things that will ensure that while you democratize data, you don't fall into pits that create a complete mess out of democratization.
Absolutely. Now, you raised an interesting point, and I'd like to pick that thread and bring it to Saswata. Saswata, how can organizations leverage Gen AI if they're dealing with sensitive data like, PHI, PII, PCIDSS? How can they leverage Gen AI and synthetic data for data masking so that these security and privacy-related issues don't crop up?
Okay. Yeah, I was actually expecting there will be something around Gen AI for sure. Thank you, Sneha. There's this Gartner report which says through 2026, minimum 20% of the manual, at this point in time, whatever manual tasks are there related to data management will be automated till 2026. That's the expectation. Apart from that, there will be at least 4 new use cases that will be created. So that's what Gartner says. And I think that's an understatement because the way it is all pervasive and impacting everything. So let me dive into that example that you mentioned about data masking. We all know regulations, whether that is in health technology or that is in financial services. Regulations are ever changing. Every day, new regulation is coming in. Also with all these geopolitical tensions that are happening and all the cybercrime that is also quite prevalent nowadays. Regulations are a must anyway. And with these regulations, what happens is every day new fields are getting added to be masked or to be, become, suddenly some fields will become personally identified data or information, and hence you need to have masking of them. Recently, I heard that there was, it happens all the times, countries stop cross-border movement of data, right? And that is where I think a lot of companies have already started using Gen AI, which means, in earlier days, you are using Excel to mask, let's say, customer name or customer ID. Nowadays, it is very easy. You can actually have synthetic data masking, and then you can move the data cross-border without any issue. So that's something that is, as a use case, that will, for sure, coming up. The other point was on data quality, which I missed out. So on data quality also, I think, if we have all these new regulations or documentation around what are those data quality rules that are out there, 200, 300, depending on whatever customer master or whatever master data you're talking about. It's very easy. If we train the model properly, the Gen AI model, it will be all right for them to formulate newer data quality rules. You don't need army of people to really come up with new data quality rule, thinking intelligently about what would have happened if that had happened. So those type of things are quite easy from an analytics point of view to come up with new rules. At this point in time, you need to have that. Otherwise, it's exponentially increasing the number of rules that you need to run your data quality engine. So immense application of Gen AI is seen at this point in time, and it will only increase.
Absolutely. Now, Koushik, Aditya raised this point, and I'd like to dig a little deeper with this. It's very important to establish the formal guardrails and proper data governance, robust data governance, when we talk about data democratization. So how do you see that? How do you incorporate a robust data governance framework within your organization, since you're also from the BFSI sector?
Yeah. Certainly, being a financial services entity, we are highly responsible in terms of data governance and security. I'd say that it's a three-step process. The first step is just the controls, right? So make sure that the access controls are right, only the right people have access to the right type of data, right? Not everybody in the organization needs to have access to PII, so you limit who has PII access, and so just having those controls is one layer of protection. The second thing is just building awareness in the organization. We spend 2 to 4 hours every year with everybody that has access to data, just training them on data security and how some of the breaches happen, how passwords are shared, how phishing happens and stuff. Because a lot of data compromise is not intentional, but the organization is a victim to that, right? So building awareness is a big part of what we do within the organization. And the third thing I'd say is just culture, right? So just building a culture of responsibility within the organization is important. Not everything can be controlled with limiting printer access, limiting internet access, and all of that, right? Because at some point it gets in the way of productivity. That's where I think culture becomes important. An organization that has a more responsible culture is less prone for data compromises.
Yes,
so I think those are three levels, I would say.
Now, Shivaji, when we talk about data democratization, it's not a random exercise and experimentation. It's a very intentional, purposeful approach towards driving better decisions, driving business outcomes through data-driven decisions. So how do you create that collaborative culture amongst the senior management, the executive management, the business managers, and your IT teams? How do you orchestrate these three departments to bring that awareness and to make them work together in tandem?
Well, personally, I literally go to each mall and visit and have discussions with seniors because challenge A does not exist in mall B and vice versa. So that is why it has to be dealt in a very personalized way, and where as much as there's a scope of replicating strategies, but at the same time, there are going to be unique factors which needs to be addressed in a very different style. As much as it's not an experiment, but also it requires a lot of thought leadership kind of moment where you sit in a room and have these brainstorming sessions like, how do I disrupt this, or how do I not do the normal per se? So how do I bring a change? And that kind of, or usually is coming from the top, right? But at the same time, so as we were discussing culture, so it has to be about how you really want to drive the organization, or from mall to mall, or as a centralized and a unified way. So this challenge, as much as it's a challenge, but it's an interesting journey when you have some people on board who think the same way and who want to drive things, right? So you can either see that as a challenge or as an opportunity, how you want to drive this, I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Ravindra, in the online marketplace business, it's very important to create moments that matter. It cannot be about rear view metrics, but always on metrics. So how can data democratization help you create the hyper-personalized, relevant, and anticipatory decisions on behalf of customers and to be able to serve them better?
Right. So I'll probably build on top of the answer that I was talking about, that unified data platform. So when you sort of try to democratize your data, one thing that we do like consciously is try to build a consumer journey in the data. We look at users like onboarding on the platform, first purchase, next purchase, and to that user becoming a veteran on the platform, right? So we sort of create that journey on the platform and we define the right milestones. What I mean by milestones is uh, we look at similar users together, and if they are able to show similar behavior in terms of and good behavior like purchase happening, multiple purchase happening, we call those as aha moments, right? And we try to leverage that. So first part is we building that journey via data, then making it available to all stakeholders like the browsing experience team would also have the same access to data, same view to data, and the logistic and post order team also would have the same view to data. So the strategy could be very similar, very in synergy for the user's benefit, right? Now, having said that, I'll try to explain how we do hyper personalization or anticipatory sort of a behavior via some one example, right? So let's say there is a user who comes on the platform and she buys a sari today, right? 1 month later, she comes and she buys some jewelry, right? What we do then, right? We see that there are other cohort of users who are very similar to this user who in a span of 1 month they have done exactly the same thing. They have bought sari, then they have bought jewelry, right? Then we see what these users have done, right? We see that the third month they have started considering footwear, sandals, and they ended up buying that in the next month, right? So what we do from that learning is we try to bring that learning to this current user. We start building a consideration set for this user. We would start showing more footwears, again tuned to the interest of this user, and eventually the hope is that this user would also convert by buying a sandal, right? So here we are able to personalize the feed that we are showing, product feed to the user. One is via anticipating what the user is going to buy today versus what the user is also going to buy in a month's time, right? So both of these we are able to leverage via the data journey that we have built, right? So in general, this is how we do hyper personalization at Meesho.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Now, Aditya, when we talk about technologies like AI and IoT, the nature of data is also changing from batch-oriented to real-time. So how can data architectures be prepared to deal with these changes? Very quickly, if you could tell us, we have very little time left.
Definitely, yeah. So very well pointed. As we incorporate more and more AI and more IoT devices, blockchain technology into our businesses, the nature of data changes more from a batch oriented to a more real time, right? And we need to, or rather our data architectures need to adapt to these changes, right? So basically we need to have more real-time influx of the data. So traditional ETL pipelines that run in batches may not work. We need to have ingestion through a more real-time process, just like Kafka. Since the volume of the data is increasing along with AI and IoT, we need to have robust processes wherein, let's say, we are processing the data using Spark, right? And then we also need to have a very modular framework of arranging our data, right? Because since a lot of data is coming in, we don't want everything to get mixed up, right? So we need to have modular pipelines that are running independently and are able to cater to all different types of needs. Maybe it's transactional, maybe it's analytics, right? And availability of that data is something that we need to tackle, because we have all the AI systems in place, we have all the IoT devices in place, but if you're not making that data available for further analytics, then it is of no use, right? So taking cues from the previous answer, again, a very robust data warehouse combined data lake architecture is something that can tackle all of these complexities of bringing in AI and IoT data, right? And we also need to have one more thing in point, is that once this AI and IoT devices data comes in, we need to have data architectures that can support a multi-cloud environment, because one of the clouds can probably have a different capability and the other cloud might have a very strong capability in one of the AI models, right? So we need to have architectures that can tackle both these multi-cloud environment frameworks. Right? And once again, emphasizing on the point that once you bring in data from various sources and it's a more real-time data, so you need to have a very strong guardrail around the data security, right? You don't want transactions getting tampered between services, and you don't want people to misuse all of these data that is coming from AI and IoT devices, right? So these are some of the best practices that you can follow to actually create a AI and IoT robust data architecture.
Absolutely. Now, we have finished the time that we were allotted, but very quickly, 40 seconds by the clock, if all of you could just tell me one thing that you learned in your data democratization journey that you think that you wish in retrospect that you would have learned earlier, and one thing that you think they would benefit from. Any one learning maybe that you had. We can start with Saswata. Very quickly.
Yeah, sure. I think data is everybody's responsibility. Of course, this august audience here, you are all data leaders. But I will see that happening only when a salesperson in B2B enters the right data related to customer. And that person is literate, and that person can make a connection with the business outcome that he or she is driving. Yep.
I think in terms of one very good learning that I have while we democratize data is that have a very good data modeler with you. Because having general data engineering folks will set up everything for you, but a data modeler who understands your business and is able to modify the data according to your business is something that will create the more structured approach for your data architectures.
To me, the biggest learning on data democratization is the user community. Oftentimes, like the salespeople and people on the front line don't really appreciate data. And so you create solutions and force it on them. So if you can reverse the flow of demand, you create the demand and then meet the need, I think the impact is much higher.
I would say what I've personally learned out of data is that it can annoy customers, because I have been an annoyed customer as well of various things. So we in our department, what we have decided to never annoy customers and be very specific and very open on a conversation what we do, and let the customers choose to talk to you, and you don't keep forcing things. Yeah.
So one thought I had is like a robust democratization of data generally helps create a more data-driven org, and that helps people take conscious decisions which are in line with what users are trying to say via data, right? So
Absolutely. You're right. I think it'll also spark a lot of curiosity in dealing with data, and also spur a lot of innovation. That's the end goal of data democratization, where all the users are empowered and enabled to ask more questions of data and to deal with data in ways to solve unique problems and create new value propositions for customers. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You're a very attentive audience. Can I please request all of you to give a very warm round of applause to all my panelists? Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen.